Hi, my name is Joaquin Walsh, and I will be presenting to you about substance use disorder, the Grant Challenge in New Mexico in 2019. So primarily, substance use disorder was and is a really prevalent issue in the United States, and especially in New Mexico. So statistically, as of 2019, New Mexico led the state and the U.S. in the lowest high school graduation rates, among the top 5 states for accidental death, suicide, underemployment, child poverty, and crime. Many of these challenges facing New Mexico were due to substance use disorder and related to it in some sort of way. It is also known as SUD. So, statistically, substance use disorder in New Mexico, as of 2019, has had a rise in methamphetamine deaths per 100,000 people, heroin deaths, fentanyl and analogs deaths, and alcohol deaths, with only a decreasing trend in non-fentanyl and RX opioids. So, substance use disorder generally very negatively impacts the people of New Mexico and has led to lower education rates, higher rates of crime, and mortality statewide. And so the goal of this grant challenge that I'm presenting to you today is to help increase education and by 2030 lower the rates of these statistics in the state and hopefully give education to people about substance use in hopes that we can lower the stigma and lower the use of these drugs in not only adults but also children in our state. So, substance use mortality per 1,000 people, per 100,000 people. This is a state map of each county and the substance use mortality rates that happen per capita. And you can see that the leading counties of the state are not only ones that have lower populations, but are also comprised of more rural and poorer populations of people, with our lower rates being in these counties, especially Santa Fe, Bernalillo, and Valencia County, which have access to more treatments and better education regarding substance use disorder. So we have our leading county, which is Rio Arriba County, with 129 deaths per 100,000 people, followed up by Sierra County and Socorro County. And then leading into our Bernalillo County with 66 deaths, Santa Fe with 58, and Valencia with 60 deaths per capita. How can we combat this? Statewide, there has been many different trials and tribulations related to combating substance use disorder, but one of the main focuses of this study and of this grant challenge was to increase education on substance use disorder and destigmatize it, as well as reduce the amount of which opioids are prescribed to patients. So, in starting with changing perceptions, we can combat negative stereotypes about substance use disorder in order to help and lower the rates at which this is prevalent in adolescents and adults. By combating negative stereotypes through education and involvement of people in things such as what I'm doing right now, presenting on it, we can help to lower these rates. So destigmatizing substance use disorder as something that isn't demonized, but instead referred to as a disease, which it is. Abuse of substances and alcoholism and such is a disease that affects many people. It is genetic, and we need to talk and open these conversations about it in order to give people a chance to rehabilitate and get better access to treatments. Secondly, increasing better access to treatments. In more rural areas, treatments for substance use disorder is very low, and we're unable to give those people the kinds of treatments they need in order to combat these kinds of diseases. And so increasing better access to treatments statewide is one way in which that we can combat substance use disorder in New Mexico, and also informing and educating young populations about how these things happen, what you can do, and what options we have after going into that kind of thing. Stigma is very dangerous in substance use because it doesn't give people an opportunity to talk and rehabilitate themselves in a healthy way, often leading to them increasing drug use and often leading to death. Another thing that we can do to help improve this issue statewide is improve opioid prescribing patterns. Historically, opioids have been marketed to big medicine and big pharma as these miracle drugs that take away pain and do not have any side effects such as addiction, and we have learned more recently through studies that that is not the case. Opioids are very, very addictive drugs, and it is incredibly important that we, as medical providers in this state, are managing how we prescribe opioids to patients and who we're prescribing them to. Young populations are not necessarily people who need to be prescribed opioids for light medical treatments and such. I personally was prescribed a very, very light dosage of opioids for my knee surgery, and even those were regulated very prestigiously and ferociously, which I think is something that will help in reducing the prevalence of SUD, substance use disorder. So by lowering high volumes of opioid prescriptions, we can lower the chances of mortality in the state of people getting hooked, especially young people getting hooked on these kinds of very aggressive drugs. And by combating the aggressive big pharma opioid marketing, we can also do this. So it is on the hands of not only these general populations, but of medical providers to be educated and have access to the education in order to not be prescribing these very aggressive drugs. And so that leads into stopping the continuation of lax opioid distribution and getting these kinds of drugs off the streets. My citations. I got most of my graphs and citations from the New Mexico Department of Health Substance Use Epidemiology Profile. They did a study and presentation in 2021 gathering all of these sources and taking all the inventory of deaths per capita of each substance use category, such as heroin, opioids, alcohol, etc. And another one of my sources was the University of New Mexico Grand Challenges in 2019, which is where this all began, and starting the fight against substance use disorder and hopefully lowering these data points by 2030. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, and please open conversations about substance use disorder and do not add to the stigma that faces a lot of these grand challenges.